Yeah, welcome, my guest, Jose. Very happy to speak to you. Welcome everyone who's joining the webinar today live and also afterwards. I think we have it on our website, on YouTube and other channels. So really looking forward to this one. Before, Jose, I introduce you and hand over to you and we'll start the discussion. Just a very quick intro on myself and Buynomics. So I'll be the host today. I'll ask the question. I'll collect the questions from the audience and be hosting this meeting. I'm co-founder, managing director of Buynomics. Spent pretty much all my professional life in pricing and revenue management. I've seen most of the topics, I would say. I'm really happy today to talk about data and metrics. I think it's one of the key topics we have in the field, so I'm really happy to speak with an expert, and I think we also have the chance to look at some specific examples. Really looking forward to that. I think that's really insightful and useful for the audience to see how it looks in reality and speak with someone who's done the work quite extensively. Very briefly on Buynomics, who are we? We're a SaaS company. We're building a platform for pricing and revenue management that is built or based on a technology that we developed. It's called the virtual shopper technology, and it allows users to very precisely predict how sales reacts to any kind of really revenue management changes that you make in your portfolio, ranging from price changes to changes in your portfolio, adding new products, changing features in existing products, changing the way you work with promotion or other measures. It gives you really the opportunity for a holistic analysis of everything you want to do and understand in pricing management, and does this really in real time once it's set up, so you can make very difficult decision or critical decisions really fast. You don't have to do a specific research or anything to get started. Once the system is set up, you can answer these questions pretty much in real time. And if you do that, and what we see with our customers, you can massively increase your profitability, depending really on where you are in the industry, very significantly. And that's also why we're seeing a growing base of customers from different industries, mostly consumer goods companies, but also in other fields like telco and software, where we're active. And we're also moving into other areas like consumer electronics and so on. So if you're interested, please reach out after the webinar or in the coming days. We'll send out a follow-up with the recording of this webinar on Monday. And now I'm really happy to talk to Jose. Really looking forward to the talk. Before we start, just one comment. If you have any questions to Jose, now is the time to ask them. I think it's simple if you just write them into the chat or in the Q&A. I will collect them, and then I'll hand them over to Jose towards the end, and we should have some time at the end to go through all of these questions. And now, without further ado, I'll hand over and give you the word. Jose, welcome to our webinar. And yeah, just maybe tell the audience a little bit, who are you and why are we talking?
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Happy to be here. Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm global director of pricing at Spandex Group. We are a B2B distributor. We also produce. We have a manufacturing facility, but I would say that our core business is business-to-business distribution, right? We are in the signage, digital printing industry. We provide materials for print shops that will print advertising or wrapping vehicles in order to produce messages that will arrive to the targeted audience. And as I said, we are right in the middle between manufacturers and those print shops, car wrappers, and so on and so forth. I've been in pricing, well, I would say almost my entire career, because I've been almost my entire career in sales. So if you are in sales, you are definitely in pricing, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. And what most fascinates you about pricing, revenue management?
Well, no doubt, the impact that you can have in the whole organization in terms of top revenue and profitability. And I think we all have seen in the few months, right? How important is pricing in order to make sure that you are able to capture not only all the value that you deliver to your customers, but also to make sure that you keep your company profitable even when there are cost increases, without losing customers, without losing, or at least without losing too much volume. So the impact for me is what really interests me from this about this functional position.
And I would say, particularly like in the recent years, they have been particularly interesting, I would say, from a pricing perspective, with increasing prices. Probably you've also in your company been affected by that, increasing commodity prices, and then the question, of course, how to deal with that. Was there anything special in the last year versus before, or what was your experience?
Oh yeah. I have to tell you that we as distributors, we had in the past, I would say, 1 or 2 price increases per year. Okay. A couple of years ago, and I would say just up to 6 months ago, we had 1 cost increase every 2 or 3 weeks. Not for the whole portfolio, but today from one brand, tomorrow from another manufacturer, the day after tomorrow for a specific range of products. Yeah, that was incredible, incredible. Yeah. And we are not talking about small increases, right? We saw something that was unthinkable just, I would say, 24 months ago, 18, 25% cost increases. Unthinkable. Yeah. And also the frequency. We had to change and adapt most of our processes in order to be able to digest.
Yeah, and I hope as a consumer that this has slowed down a bit more recently. How would you say, and just like we'll get into that into more detail, things like price elasticities, if you're tracking these, how was that affected in the situation? Did it increase, or how were the price increases perceived? Because I think that you were not the only ones in your industry who had to increase prices at the time.
Sure. I have to tell you that at the very beginning, all the macroeconomics help us in order to pass through those cost increases to our customers. Why? Because in the past, every single time you had a price increase, it was a kind of a fight, right? But I said, cost increases, especially from energy, fuel, food, it was everywhere. So at the very beginning, it was, I would say, easier for us to explain customers why we had to increase prices. But at some point, it's the amount of money that is available in the world is not infinite, right? So if everybody increase prices 25%, and at some point, customers will have to start making decisions. I prefer to wrap my fleet of trucks or not, because I need to pay other stuff, right? So yeah, it was difficult. It was difficult. So at the very beginning, I would say that the price sensitivity didn't change a lot, but we do on a regular basis voice of customer survey. And 3 years ago, pricing was among the top 10, right? Priorities or concerns. Today is one of the top 3.
Okay.
So it has changed.
So it definitely becomes more relevant, and I think that needs leads nicely over to the main topic when we want to talk about metrics and the use of data and reporting and pricing, because that becomes more important, because if you increase prices more, you have to have a better visibility on what happens, in the same sense that if you drive your car faster, you need to be more aware of your surroundings than when you're going more slowly, right?
Yeah. You know, pricing is such a sensitive topic in any company, no matter the industry, no matter, it's so sensitive that a lot of people have an opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important that it's the time to make decisions. You move away from feelings, guts, instincts, and you rely on data in order to make those decisions. For pricing, but in any other aspect in a company. So that's why it's so important to have relevant data, relevant insights, relevant KPIs, in order to make sure that you are on the right path, at the right speed, and in the right direction.
Yeah. So what are the right metrics or data? Maybe in your industry specifically, I think you're more in like a B2B case, but also, of course, what interests the audience is to look more broadly in like across industries, across applications. What are like the most important metrics for pricing?
It depends a lot of on the company, in the market, in the business you are operating. But at the end of the day, what I believe it's relevant across the board, no matter the company, no matter the size of the company, no matter of the industry. First of all, the insight has to be relevant.
Mm-hmm.
We live in the area of data. But not because we have so many data points, it means that all of them are relevant. So you need to identify which are the relevant ones. Then I think you need to make an effort in order to make sure that those insights are actionable. Let me explain. How can I? So I think that it's important to arrive to a good diagnosis, right? If you've got an illness. But what is really, really relevant is which is the pill you need to take in order to heal, right? So we can have a lot of insights, but if at the end of the day you don't know how to act on them in order to steer a change, in order to make an improvement, it's useless. In our case, again, we are a B2B distributor, but I think that's that experience is usable in other areas, in other markets. All about region. For us, our pricing, it has nothing to do the pricing data, the pricing insights we are producing for Switzerland compared to Spain, Slovakia, Italy. So regions are different. The way customers use products is quite similar, but their willingness to pay changes a lot. Point number one. Point number two, products, right? We need to be able to classify and to create the right product hierarchy in order to aggregate. In our case, we are working with more than 40,000 SKUs, right? So it's not manageable to provide discount guidance, as an example, on each of those 40,000 SKUs. You need to aggregate those materials in a minimum way. And last but not least, I think it's super important. In our case, we've got a direct sales and also other channels. But for our direct sales, our own sales team, it's super important that we are able to dissect the data also by sales individual. So we are able to provide those insights very specific for sales rep on a customer group and on a product or a product group. That's super important for us. So you need to figure out which are the key drivers that will help you to make those data insights actionable. For us, is geography, the sales rep, the customer, and the product. So every single metric that we are able to produce in my team, this insight has to be able to be declined in those 4 dimensions. If not, we are not providing this KPI.
Oh, okay, then are you then breaking it down further? So let's say you have a customer and that customer is in a specific industry and it has a specific size and share of wallet, all of these dimensions underneath. Okay, I understand. And what are the metrics that you then collect for these? Is it like revenue, profit, margin, these type, and what else on top of that?
Well, I think there are two key areas, right? I think it's really important to identify outliers, okay? So once you establish a policy on discount, on set list prices, whatever, you need to identify where are the outliers. So a typical example, which we are using very, very often, is a chart that shows revenue and profitability. One might expect that the higher the revenue or the volume, right, the lower the profitability. That makes sense. It's curious when you have a look that for a specific region or for a specific sales rep, you see outliers, customers or product groups, right, with not a very high volume, but very low profitability.
Yeah.
So
this is one example, right? I think you brought an example of this. Let me just share that. Here. Can you see it?
Not. Yes, we can see your screen.
Yeah.
Perfect. So and I think this is the example you were mentioning. Maybe you can explain this. I think this is like one of the key graphs or one of the important graphs when looking at metrics and data.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So here you've got in this chart, each dot is in this specific case, it's a customer, but it could be a product, right? Within a product range, it could be a product at you, whatever you prefer. Again, whatever dimension is actionable in your business, in your market, in your company. So here, each dot is a customer. We've got in the x-axis, we've got the revenue. Again, it could be revenue value, euros, dollars, could be volume, right? On the y-axis, we've got the margin percentage, profitability. But again, could be discount or net price, price point, whatever the metric makes sense to you. Yeah. What we've got here is this big cloud of dots. As I said, every dot is a customer. And you see that as the customer moves to my right, which means higher revenue, the average profitability goes down, which in our industry, this makes sense because when there are high volumes, customers expect, they think they deserve higher discounts, right? But then you are able to trace, to draw a line that shows which is the average, right? Depending on the revenue, which is the average profitability that you can expect. And then you can identify which are the customers that are really far away from this average. And for those that are really, really far away, we ask our sales team is to go and figure out what's going on there, right? But hey, it's not only for punishing them, because you can also see this chart the other way around. Hey, why for a customer in the neighborhood of 100,000 euros per year, if the average margin is, let's say, 40%, why this customer 60? Maybe that's because we are not giving this customer the right discount, maybe because they are not pushing back enough, right? But then we are in danger. We are in danger that a competitor enters and we lose the customer because they offer a better price and we still have room.
Yeah.
Right? So this kind of outliers analysis work on both ways.
Yeah. But when I look at these, what always surprised me, and I think this is a typical example, is how low the R square is. So you would think that customer size would explain a lot of the variation, but it really doesn't. And often see many examples where even like the sales rep explains more variation than the customer. So it depends more on the salesperson than on the customer what the price. And this can have like all kinds of risk, right? So for example, if you're, let's say, one of these large three ones, the largest ones, if one of them buys one of these dark red or brown customers, and then they wonder, hey, why did they get a better price than we do when we're like 100 times their size? Then you not only risk the small customer, but you risk the pricing of the large customer here as well, right? So these are always the difficult cases here.
Yeah, that's exactly what I tell to them. So imagine they go and have a coffee and start talking in a trade show or whatever. That's super dangerous. I have to tell you that this is, and I I have a copy, right? That's the first analysis we did, I would say 7 years ago. Fortunately, now it looks a little bit better, but I think it's a good example on how important it is to work on outliers, right?
Yeah. Maybe I think you have another example that you brought, this one here. Maybe we can go into more detail here, because I think this is a bit more detailed. I think the first one was an introduction to the topic, and now we're doing a more deep dive.
Yeah, sure. So that's very simple, right? When we are talking about revenue and margin value or margin percentage, there are simple rules of thumb, right? So revenue goes up, that's good. Revenue goes down, that's bad. Exactly the same with profitability. But what I think it's super important is to really understand the whys. So if revenue goes up, that could be because you are changing your list prices, or because you are managing your accounts in a different way, or because you are managing your volume, or because of the product mix, right? The other way around, if your margin value is going down, that could be because with your list price increases or changes, you are not capturing or able to absorb all the cost increases, or because you are discounting too much, or because your product mix is not good. So revenue, margin value, margin percentage, which are, I would say, the key elements in a company, they are multifactorial. And these kind of tools that allow you to dissect the transactions in order to compare which was the list price in a year ago and today, which is the discount a year ago and today, the cost a year ago and today, allows you to identify by analyzing the differences, right? If you are growing in revenue because of list price increases, or because of volume, or because of increasing discount, is allowing you to capture additional market share, additional volume. So for me, that's super important, because this allows you to measure the impact of any commercial action that you have implemented.
Okay, and then you can take the appropriate action depending on really what you see. And on what level do you do this type of analysis? Is this by product, by customer, by region, or how do you look at this?
As I said, we have the capability to go down to whatever the level is required in order to steer the business. So, for example, if we see that there is an issue in, let's say, Germany, okay, then we are able to analyze if this issue is across the board for all product groups, all brands that we distribute, or it's more related to one brand or one product range or another. Then you can also have a look in order to see if, for example, the discount, we are giving away too much money because of too much discounting, right? You can analyze if this is happening, again, across the board, or most of the impact is coming from a couple of salespeople or a couple of regions, right? So this allows you to implement a corrective action. And that's super important, because at the beginning we made that mistake, right? Generating a lot of reports, a lot of KPIs, a lot of insights that we in the pricing team, we thought that were super relevant because we saw deviations. But when we went to the country managers, sales managers, business leaders, they said, okay, so now what? What can I do in order to improve here, right? So it's super important that you are able to make those KPIs action.
Yeah, I think that leads to the next question I have. So I think many of our viewers are working as pricing, revenue managers, directors, and so on. So they have the question of what metrics, KPIs to focus on a, let's say, almost daily basis. What would you recommend? How to approach this topic? How to just select the right KPIs and then make it work also in the organization?
I think that it's because you always need to prioritize, right? You don't have infinite resources, infinite time. You always need to go, in my opinion, top to bottom. So you start with revenue and profitability. If it's okay, move into the next topic, right? If for a region X, Y, or Z, revenue is not okay, then you need to go down and identify if that's because there is an issue with the product mix, there is an issue with the list prices, and so on and so forth. So my approach is to, top to bottom in order to prioritize. And I think that it's also super important that every single time you put in place a promotion or you launch a product, you are able to identify which are the key metrics. In our case, it's super simple. Number of customers that are buying, as an example, when we are making a promotion, right? We want to identify how many customers have taken advantage of this promotion, and of those, are we increasing the revenue, the volume, or not? And of course, which is the average profitability that we are getting, right? Sometimes we see that a promotion is not generating enough traction, and you need to identify this as soon as possible in order to modify. Does this make sense?
That makes a lot of sense. So how to maybe just this one last question on the topic. How do you make it work in an organization? Because getting the organization to implement metrics, getting the organization to work with the metrics, that's always a challenging topic. What's your recommendation here?
I think it's super important to involve business. Because as I said, I personally have made the mistake of defining a metric, defining a report, that it's super cool, nice charts, but nobody understands. It's not actionable. So if they really don't know how to act, they will not use it. If they don't understand, they will not use it. If they don't trust, they will not use it. So I think it's super important to get the involucration of business leaders. The sooner the better. Point number one. Point number two, as I said, as a recap, right? You need to be 100% sure that all the metrics that you are producing, all the reporting, it's actionable, right? Point number three is super important, that everybody that is going to use this report or this metric really understand. Because, and again, I have seen this, we are able to produce very complex reports, very complex KPIs, but if the people that is in the trench, the business leaders, they don't understand, they will not use it. Why? Because you can't trust what you don't understand. And it's very difficult to follow, use, in order to make business decisions if you don't trust. And the last thing, I also believe it's crucial that you are able to help business leaders to understand why those metrics and KPIs can help them to achieve their goals, right? So if you are just producing a price sensitivity gauge, but they don't know how to use it in order to hit their targets, it's useless. It's pointless.
I think we're coming to the end of the time, so the time went by a bit quicker than I thought. So just let me quickly summarize. So to make it work, you need to involve top management. It has to be understandable, actionable, and they need to see, the team needs to see the benefit. I think that's a good summary. Maybe we take one last question, and then we move to the fade out.
Yeah.
So, okay. Very good morning. I'll just read it to you. Insightful session. How do you track 40,000 SKUs? And in what frequency do you do that? Do you do that every day, every week? How do you work with 40,000 SKUs?
Okay. First of all, we aggregate them, right? We don't analyze and provide any kind of insight unless it's required for whatever the reason at SKU level, right? So we group them in products or in product families that are manageable by salespeople, I would say by human beings, right? As I said, we are a B2B distributor, right? We are not in B2C, so that's how we need to manage, right? So getting into the detail, again, as a B2B distributor, I think that it's also important to understand that we in the market where we operate, there is not a lot of transparency, right? We know which is the list price of our competitors. But in a B2B environment, almost no one pays list price, right? And the discounts that customers are receiving, they are not disclosed, right? So the way we use to track our pricing is by analyzing our own data. I have also to tell you that we are big distributor, right? In Europe, we are leaders, more than 400 million euros of revenue. So we have a lot of data, right? So we are analyzing our own transactional data in order to see if there is a lack of traction in one specific product range. So we've got some alerts in the system that raise red flags. And then when we see that there is a region, a sales rep, or a product group, product range that is declining, underperforming, then we can use, as an example, profit driver analysis or price waterfall. There are many ways to name this kind of reports that dissect revenue and profitability in the different drivers in order to understand if the issue we've got with a certain product or a product range is related to the pricing, the list prices, the discount, or the product mix when you are having a look into a product family.
Perfect. And looking in particularly in B2B, the competitor pricing and market shares and all of these things are always difficult. Maybe that's for another talk to see how to best work with that side of the business. Thank you so much, José, for this talk. I think it was very insightful. I think I learned a bit here and there, or quite a bit here and there. So it was super interesting for me. I hope, and I'm sure that the same is true for the audience. So thank you very much. I hope we can repeat that at some point when we have a new topic to talk about. It was great fun for me, maybe for the audience. So that was today's Buynomics talk with José. Next week, we have another webinar where it's just us, where we're presenting our new platform, what we call Buynomics 2.0. Super excited to share that also with the broader audience. Then in 2 weeks from now, we have another Buynomics talk with Alejandro. And then the week after, we will be talking about pricing methods, which is something that we also do on a recurring basis. Lots of people always find that very interesting and tune in. So also excited about that webinar. So we have a packed October, end of September, really looking forward to that. José, thanks again for taking the time and sharing your insights to the audience, everyone. Have a great weekend and looking forward to seeing you in one of the upcoming events that we have. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity. Bye. Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Bye.